Thank you, everyone, for coming. As it said in the media advisory, we have our interim city manager, Pat Boyle. He's going to provide an update following this morning's special city council meeting where Pier litigation was discussed, Grant Street Pier litigation matters. And so Pat's going to provide the update that is approved by council. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I do have a couple comments to make. After a long, arduous, complicated project, we're very pleased to report that the whole issue with regard to litigation, with all the outstanding issues with the Burlington Brant Street Pier and the construction of the pier, have been resolved. I want to thank our interim city manager, Jeff Fielding. I want to thank our interim city manager, Pat Boyle, I should say, our former city manager, Jeff Fielding, and our city solicitor, Nancy Shea Nickel, for all the tremendous effort that they put into this particular resolution and resolving this on the behalf of all of us in Burlington. So I'm going to turn it over to Pat now for some more detail and context.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After 4 years of litigation, the city participated in a mediation session of 9 parties involved in the pier dispute last Wednesday and Thursday in Toronto. Following 2 days of mediation, an agreement has been reached, subject to the approval of council, which occurred earlier today, and the final approval of 2 of the parties' boards of directors, which is expected in the next few days. While there is a confidentiality agreement related to some of the terms, I am at liberty to disclose the following. First, the city will not bear any cost as a result of the settlement, and specifically will not be required to pay anything to any of the 8 other parties. Secondly, the city will receive $1.5 million in cash as a result of the settlement. The city also retains a $500,000 holdback from one of the parties. Therefore, the total net benefit to the city as a result of this settlement is $2 million. The settlement amount will more than compensate the city for its costs relative to defending the city's interests. The city had a choice: continue with the litigation or participate in mediation. A conservative estimate for completing the next step to trial, should council decide to go that route, was estimated at being $1.5 to $2 million in costs. That cost would have to be identified as a line item in the 2015 budget. Frankly, those funds would be better spent on the capital budget to deal with infrastructure rather than on further legal fees. A trial also creates uncertainty. A mediated settlement is final and binding, and in this case, without additional cost to the taxpayer now or in the future. A few observations. The negotiating team, which consisted of Joan Ford, our city treasurer, Nancy Shea Nickel, our city solicitor, yours truly, and our outside legal counsel, were successful for 4 reasons. The first reason was that council set a direction to settle, but not to incur additional costs. Secondly, the negotiating team was very well prepared for this mediation. Nancy Shea Nickel knew the brief inside and out, and Joan Ford provided the financial advice and corporate history. Support staff had the background, and our outside legal experts knew the intricacies of construction law in its most current form. Thirdly, it was obvious that all of the parties wanted a solution last week, and each party, and I repeat, each party was professional, courteous, and interested in finding a solution rather than creating more problems. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the behind-the-scenes work of my predecessor, Jeff Fielding. Just as I was instructed by council to ensure a successful outcome last week, Mr. Fielding was instructed to engage in shuttle diplomacy over the course of the last 18 months, and he certainly set the stage for a positive outcome last week. I would be pleased to answer any questions.
You're not prepared to say where the 1.5 million came from.
So the parties to the mediation met. Some parties contributed funds to a pot, to a fund of money, and the city essentially was able to recoup some of those funds for its own purposes. That's all I'm prepared to say.
If I understand correctly then, the funds that the city got, there were
$2 million.
two separate ones. 1.5 million came out of a pot of money to which all the parties contributed.
Except the city. The city did not
Fair enough.
contribute any money to this fund.
Fair enough. And the other $500,000, there was a holdback, and those were invoices that had been approved and all that stuff. And some of that is not going to get passed on to people who expected money from the city. Is that fair?
I believe that's fair. There was a $500,000 holdback provided to the original contractor, and those funds will remain with the city.
So the city had said its legal costs were $1.3 million.
Correct.
Is that going to be covered by this?
Yes,
$2
that's
million?
correct. Yes.
So the city's legal costs for this 5-year legal battle are zero?
Have been correct. They have been covered.
Are you able to tell us the exact total, though, of where we were at in terms of the final legal fee tally?
I believe it's approximately 1 point.
Not at this time.
Not at this time. What we can say is what has been expended to date when the last conference took place. That was 1.3
1.3. Yes, we're giving an update. All right. So how would we be able to find out? Will it take another FOI and then a council decision?
No, it won't. I mean, we'll provide that information. We're just waiting for the final bills to come in as a result of this mediation.
Do you know approximately when that would happen then?
Um,
I'm going to say over the next couple of months.
Okay.
December.
Harm Schulteis and, sorry, this isn't my areas, but Harm Schulteis and ACOM, have they both agreed to this?
Yes.
Are they the two outstanding people who
No.
have to take it? No.
No. So there were 9 parties in total, and the city was one of those parties, the contractor, the original designer, insurance companies, and so on, and subcontractors were all party to this mediation or party to this dispute.
So, Mr. Mayor, maybe again, sort of this long saga, is it over now?
Yes. Yes. It is over. I mean, I compliment our staff for what they did last week with the mediation. I compliment our staff and all the preparation work that was involved. They did great work, and they came to us this morning with a resolution that council embraced unanimously, and it's over.
How does the pier stand now? Like, everything, it's been built, everything's taken care of, it's just...
It's been built, it's paid for. $14.4 million was the number, and we came in on time and on budget. Once we, shouldn't say the on time or on budget, once we started it the second time, we came in on time and on budget. So all outstanding issues with regard to the Grant Street Pier have been resolved.
Care to say where things went wrong?
I will say this, just to put it in the context that, you think over a 10-year period, the city has $550 million in capital projects. And we have one in that 10-year period that went wrong. So you put it in the context, sometimes projects do go wrong. And I think the mediation discussion, and I wasn't party to that, I think the mediator might have a view as to what went wrong. But some projects simply go wrong, and we've dealt with it.
Do you feel that the city was as open and transparent as it could have been over the years for this litigation process?
I think part of the challenge when you're in litigation is to know what can be disclosed publicly and what is something that's before the courts. And the court challenges began in 2010. And once that occurs, it's the advice that's provided to organizations from their legal counsel is to recognize the fact that these things ultimately might wind up in court. So there isn't as much information that normally would be shared with the community, because it's a subject of litigation. I think now that the litigation has been spared, the mediation settlement is in place. The objectives that have been set by the city negotiating team as directed by council have been met. We are, as the mayor said, we've completed the task. The pier is finished, it's complete, it's bought and paid for. The only outstanding issue was litigation, and the litigation issue has been averted. settlement is in place, and the city has recouped its costs as a consequence of the litigation being initiated.
Given what you know now, Your Worship, were there any points at which it may have been possible to settle and not have to go as long as we've gone? I'm thinking specifically of the offer that Zurich Insurance brought back.
So I'm thinking of the fact that during the mediation, there were 9 parties there as part of the settlement and part of that discussion. And you think about the complication of having 9 parties together, I'm very confident that we pursued the most appropriate route to resolve the issue.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on what this has done to Burlington over the years with this issue hanging there? Has it been bad to the city? Has it been an issue at all?
Well, it certainly drew a lot of attention over the last 7 or 8 years about the particular project and what went wrong. It certainly created much media attention. It is nice to have it resolved. It was nice to have it finished last June and have it open for many people to enjoy. And now the final issue is resolved, the litigation piece. So I think we've dealt with this in a very, very appropriate way.
Any other questions? Thanks very much.